Growing up in England, it was always a must to have Yorkshire puddings at any roast dinner, especially Christmas Day. We have made them a couple of times before on the channel, and seeing them now, I regret making them because they weren't as good as what we've made here. These are absolutely fantastic. They are also known as popovers if you are unaware, but let's get straight into it. Please sit back, relax, and enjoy. Alright guys, I'm stepping out my comfort zone for this video because I'm actually in front of the camera and I'm talking to you, so I feel a bit more personality will go into this rather than me just doing a voiceover. But as for this recipe, it is really quick, it's super easy, and all we need is milk, water, eggs, flour, and a pinch of salt. Some oil, fat, duck fat, goose fat, or even beef tallow, that's all you need. Super simple, really quick recipe. We'll start off by adding 1 cup or 250 milliliters of whole milk to a mixing bowl. You can use light milk. If you do it, you don't need to add the water. This right here is about 2 tablespoons or 40 milliliters worth. This is just going to increase the hydration level and add a little bit of extra crisp to our Yorkshire puddings or popovers, whatever you want to call them. Then we're going to add in 6 whole eggs. I know a lot of people do just add your egg yolks to this type of recipe. Can be a little bit rich if you do it like that. I just do recommend adding in the whole eggs. Lastly, we are going to add in 220 grams of plain flour, and this obviously isn't gluten-free, but we do need the gluten in there to develop, and that's going to allow these to get really nice and puffy and get that nice flavor on them. The last thing we do need is a pinch of salt, roughly about a teaspoon's worth. You don't need a whole lot, and that's just going to add a nice little flavor, bringing out the best of everything in this mixture. With that now done, all we have to do is grab a whisk and just give this a good mix around. We want to make sure everything's nice and smooth. You can also sift that flour in if you want to just be extra cautious with that type of stuff, but it doesn't really matter if you give it a good whisk. It should all break down and become really, really smooth. We also don't want the batter to be too thick. That's why it's quite a runny batter. If it's too dense, they'll just be too heavy to be able to puff up, whereas the lighter texture, the lighter weight will be able to make them rise a lot better and get that better crust on them too. Now, once you have a nice smooth batter and it's not too thick, looking something like this, probably the consistency of about coconut milk, we can then store this for up to 36 hours, and you can do it for an hour, or you can use it straight away if you wanted to, but the longer you leave this to rest, the better the gluten development, which will get better flavor and better rise on them when they bake. So it's up to you what you want to do. I have made this one recently, but I do have one that's in the fridge, so I'm going to test them back to back and see which one actually comes out better, and then you can decide what you want to do if you're going to make these for Christmas or whatever you're doing. For the next step, we're going to need a cupcake tin. This is obviously 12 hole. You can also use muffins. I think they come in 6 or 8s, but they will be a lot bigger if you do that, and you won't get the full maximum yield out of this recipe. As for this, we are just going to go about 2 teaspoons, maybe even 3 teaspoons of just vegetable oil in each hole. Like I said at the beginning, you can use duck fat, goose fat, even beef tallow. If you want to make these savory or sweet, vegetable oil is the way to go. Also, whilst I'm doing this, the oven is preheating to 220 degrees Celsius, which is about 440 degrees Fahrenheit. So with that done, we can then take these over to the oven, and then we're just going to place these in for about 15 to 20 minutes, just to get that nice and smoking hot, which is going to ensure that batter crisps up really, really well. All right, so after about 20 minutes, this is going to be nice and smoking hot. Just carefully remove it with a dry tea towel, and then we're going to place this onto a wire rack. Then what we're going to do is just divide the mixture by 12, just filling these about halfway, just under 3/4 of the way. As you put them in, you'll notice that the oil will start to sizzle. That is exactly what we want. If it doesn't, it means your oil's not hot enough, but it doesn't matter a whole lot. I am actually going to test these with, depending on if you heat the oil up first or if you don't, so we can see the results at the end for that. Also, the mixture I'm using here is the one that has been set overnight, so that is also another one of the tests that will be in the end result. If you do have any leftover batter, just make sure you go through and to keep dividing it by the 12. Just make sure they're all topped up and you're not left with any leftovers then. Let's then take these back over to the oven, being careful. Remember the tray is nice and hot. And then we're just going to place these back into the oven for about 20 to 22 minutes, just until they've about quadrupled in size. They're nice and brown, and they're obviously absolutely delicious. Okay, so these have now been in for about 20 minutes. I'm just going to get them out. Just be careful of that steam that does come out. They probably will deflate just a little bit, but if you notice, they've puffed up so much compared to our previous attempts at these bad boys. I am going to leave the bottom ones in just for a couple more minutes because I put them in a little bit later. All right, what we have here now is all of these absolutely fantastic looking Yorkshires or popovers. And obviously we did the 2 different tests. These ones right here are the ones that I left overnight. As you can see, they're definitely a lot more formed. They hold their shape a lot better. But then you have these ones over here that have kind of gone a little bit, done their own sort of thing. They've kind of gone a little bit crazy over here, but that is still fantastic as well. Like you can hear Hear that beautiful crunch. They sound hollow in the center as well. They have a really, really nice texture on them. They also smell absolutely fantastic too. These ones definitely hold their shape a lot better. So if you definitely want to be able to put your gravy in these or even fill them up with something sweet, I do recommend resting these overnight. If you're just looking for a quick, easy recipe, something that you can chuck together and get straight in the oven and have done from start to finish in, say, about an hour, definitely don't worry about resting them because these are absolutely brilliant as well. Now, if I give you guys a closer look, you'll definitely notice the difference in the ones that have been rested overnight. This one here is definitely the one that's hold its shape a lot better. Like I said, you can put the gravy inside there and it shouldn't, or hopefully wouldn't leak out the bottom. But as for these ones, they are a little bit, like, as you can see, they're bendy and everything like that, but they still are really crispy. So the choice is yours, which one you want to do. I do recommend going with the one that's an overnight rest though. Now, the last thing on these absolute beauties before we dig in is they obviously can be eaten straight away, but you can also freeze them after allowing them to completely cool down. Place them in the freezer for up to 4 months. They defrost really well and they reheat really well as well. And I'll leave all of those details in the description below. You can also eat these savory and sweet depending on how you want to do it. And I have some beef gravy right here. I'm just going to give that a nice little swirl around. And then I usually say it over a voiceover, but I suppose we can then dig in. Eating this type of food just brings back so much nostalgia. This is the type of stuff that I grew up on. They are so good. You can use them for sweet, savory, like they're Yorkshires or popovers, however you want to say it. But other than that, I really hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you have a fantastic Christmas. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button. It really does help me out. And consider subscribing. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.